To begin the animation, well, a better workspace would be helpful, and Photoshop does come with a workspace for motion. So I'm going to go to my window menu, workspace, and I'm going to choose motion from the list. And when I do that, this timeline panel has shown up all the way across the bottom of the screen. In the middle of the timeline panel, there's a button called Create Video Timeline. Let's go ahead and click on that. And what Photoshop has done is each layer in the document has been given its own track on the timeline. So I'm going to resize this so I can see more of this information. I'm going to zoom out as well. I don't need that document to be quite that big, but I want this area to be as big as possible so I can control it. So to familiarize yourself with what you are seeing, each layer has its own track. We have little triangles that we can turn down information about each track. We have some controller buttons here where I can play the animation once we set it. This little blue symbol here, well, that's the playhead of the controller. In the far right corner is the pop-up menu for this panel as well. Now, if you notice, Photoshop picked a default of 5 seconds for this timeline, and that's not enough time for what we're going to do. So I'm going to use this little slider down here at the bottom so I can make this smaller so I can have more room. And I'm going to extend the end of the desktop layer farther out. And notice it adds time to the time markers. So I'm going to take this out till I'm about at 12 seconds to give me some more time to work with. In the pop-up menu for the timeline panel, let's set our timeline frame rate. And we're going to use a standard frame rate of 24 frames per second, which is the film standard for North America. And click OK. All right, let's set this 3D layer in motion. So in the timeline panel, let's turn down the triangle to show the options for the 3D layer. And the visual goal is this. I want this object to start off of the artboard and then move into its final position, increasing in size as it moves. To do this, a transform keyframe will be needed. Keyframe are markers which will be added along the timeline, indicating what the object should look like at that particular time on the timeline itself. So the first thing I want to do is I want to extend the 3D layer so it also has the same amount of time to experiment with as that desktop layer has. And let's set this playhead to roughly 12. So I'm just clicking in the numbers area, and that's going to set that playhead. So what I'm determining is at 12 seconds, I'm going to choose what I want to see at that point. So the goal is at the 12-second mark, the words 3D is in the position that you see now. To add a keyframe marker in your timeline panel, let's click on the stopwatch for transform. You're going to now see a little diamond symbol show up at that spot to indicate this is what it looks like at this point. Let's move that playhead by clicking on the 2-second area. And we're going to click on that diamond symbol over here on the left to add a keyframe marker at this point. But now we need to change the appearance of this 3D layer. So with that 3D layer active, make sure you have your move tool in the toolbox. I'm going to do a free transform, so that's under the edit menu, free transform. And I want to scale it down in proportion, and I want to move it off the canvas completely. Once you have that done, type return or enter. So at 2 seconds, we can't see any part of that 3D object. If you start dragging the playhead, you're going to see it start moving in, and that other keyframe tells it how far to go and when to stop. So I'm going to use my controller buttons. I'm going to set it all the way back to the very beginning of the timeline. Click my play button, and here comes the 3D layer. I'm not paying attention to the words motion, graphics, or ball at this time. And then it's finally in position. So if I wanted to speed up this transition, I could grab this diamond symbol, move these closer together. So now not until 3 seconds would that show up, which means it's going to have to move more quickly across the desktop. All right, save your document.